There is little question that Americans are getting fatter, despite 1/3 of all adults trying to lose weight at any given time. As a nation, we're spending a staggering $30 billion a year on weight loss products and promotions, yet we're gaining weight at an unprecedented rate. Childhood obesity has doubled in the last 20 years, and some statistics report that approximately 2/3 of all adults in this country are overweight, and nearly 1/3 of these can be classified as obese. These epidemic proportions have forced the medical community, government agencies, dietitians, and fitness and health professionals to wage a war on obesity. Welcome to Fitness and Wellness for a Lifetime. I'm Steve Ball, State Fitness Specialist with the University of Missouri Extension. You might remember from previous segments in this series that body composition is one of the 5 parts of health-related fitness. But before we continue, I want to make sure you really understand what the term body composition means. It refers to the different components that make up your body. The simplest model of body composition is called the 2-compartment model, in that the body is divided into 2 main components, lean body mass and fat mass. Lean body mass includes things like muscle and bone, as well as other things such as water and organ tissues. Basically, everything except fat. Let's look at an example. Consider a 154-pound person who has 80% of his body mass as lean body mass. In other words, all of those things other than body fat. This constitutes 124 pounds. This particular person has approximately 91 pounds of water, 24 pounds of protein, 7 pounds of minerals, and about 2 pounds of other miscellaneous tissue. These are all the things that make up the lean body mass component of the body. That means this 154-pound person has the remaining 20% of their total body as fat itself, or in this case, 31 pounds of fat. It's important to have a good balance of fat, not too much and not too little, although the problem for most of us is having too much body fat and not enough muscle. One of the things you should know is that muscle is more dense than fat. For instance, if you compared a pound of fat and a pound of muscle, you'd notice that the fat would take up a lot more space. There'd be a much larger pile of fat than there would be of muscle. Consider 2 people of the same height, frame, and weight, but with different body fat percentages. The one with the lower body fat percentage will take up less space and look leaner. This is why the bathroom scale is not always the best measure for determining if someone is really overweight. It is quite possible to be technically overweight by height and body weight standards, yet still be quite lean. For example, athletes often have lots of muscle with little body fat, yet will be technically overweight. It's also very possible to be of normal weight, yet quite fat at the same time. So to find out how much body fat you really have, it's a good idea to have a body composition test performed. Let's take a look at some of the various measurement techniques that are out there. The most common methods are those that can be performed in the field, like at a fitness center, school, or YMCA. The crudest of the field methods is the use of height and weight charts, which are often found in doctors' offices. They offer weight recommendations based on height and build. The problem with these charts is that they don't take into consideration the amount of muscle a person might be carrying. I caution you not to put too much credence into height and weight charts for this reason. An alternative to height and weight charts is something called the Body Mass Index, or BMI. It's widely used and is fairly easy to calculate. Here's the equation. Take your weight in pounds and divide this value by your height in inches squared, and then multiply that value by 703. A BMI of 25 doesn't mean that you're 25% fat, it just means that you have a BMI of 25. Body Mass Index has been shown to be a fairly good indicator for disease risk and therefore is commonly used. A BMI of over 25 is considered overweight, and a BMI over 30 is considered obese. At these values, the risk for cardiovascular disease, type 2 diabetes, and hypertension increases. And although better than height and weight charts, BMI also doesn't take into consideration the amount of muscle someone might have. So someone with a lot of muscle mass, who may also have very little body fat, like an athlete, might be misclassified as overweight or even obese. The waist-to-hip ratio can be performed relatively easily and is quite useful in indicating where body fat is being stored. Simply measure the smallest circumference of the waist and divide it by the largest circumference of the hips. Ideally, men should have a waist-to-hip ratio of less than 0.9, and for women, it should be less than 0.8. The thing to remember is that central adiposity, or fat stored in and around the truncal region, creates a higher risk for certain diseases. Women tend to store fat in the hips, thighs, and buttocks, which represent the pear-shaped physique. This is good from a disease standpoint, but it's difficult to lose the fat in these areas. Men tend to store fat in the truncal region, which represents an apple-shaped body. This puts men at a higher risk for disease. As we discussed in a previous segment in this series, performing lots of abdominal exercises won't help spot reduce body fat in that region. Body fat's best lost through a combination of cardiovascular exercise and dietary modification. The skin fold measuring technique measures the amount of fat that you have underneath your skin. Since approximately 50% of body fat is subcutaneous, or right under the skin, a reasonable prediction of total body fat can be made. Skin folds are taken at various sites on the body by pinching or folding the skin and the fat that lies beneath into what are called folds. The width of the fold is measured. Obviously, if you have more fat underneath the skin, the fold will be larger. The sum of these skin folds can then be converted to a body fat percentage using a conversion table. Universal procedures and protocols have been developed and should be followed to get accurate measurements. Generally, it takes a lot of practice to be good at taking these measurements. An untrained or inexperienced person will not be able to get accurate results. The calipers, or devices used to measure the skin folds, range in cost from $5 to $500. So compared to some of the other methods of body composition assessment, skin folds are relatively inexpensive. Skin folds are probably the most popular assessment tool due to their inexpensive nature, the quickness of taking the measurements, and the minimal subject cooperation that's required. As far as accuracy goes, skin folds can be fairly accurate as long as a well-trained person is performing the measurements. But as with any body composition assessment technique, their best use is in monitoring body fat change over time. And I should mention that it's very important that the same person do the measuring each time, as there can be some inter-tester variability even between two trained technicians. Bioelectrical impedance analysis, or BIA, is a fairly quick and non-invasive method of body composition assessment. A small current is passed through the body and the resistance to its flow is measured. Lean tissue has a higher water content and electrolyte concentration than does adipose or fat tissue. Thus, the resistance to this current is lower in people with low body fat levels. The accuracy and precision of this method depends on several factors, including the instrumentation, which prediction equation is used, and subject factors such as recent food consumption, hydration status, recent activity level, and menstrual cycle status. Generally, it's accepted that the accuracy of this method is comparable to skin folds. Be cautious of some of the store brand BIA machines, as they can be quite inaccurate. Nevertheless, as long as the measurement is taken under the identical circumstances, BIA can be used to track body fat change over time. Laboratory methods are more sophisticated and accurate than field methods and are performed mainly in the research setting. However, they're not as accessible due to their high cost. Hydrostatic weighing is commonly considered to be the gold standard or the criterion laboratory method to which other methods are compared against. Hydrostatic weighing works on the principle that fat floats because it's less dense than water, and lean tissue sinks because it's more dense than water. So someone with a high percentage of body fat will float more or weigh less in water compared to someone with a lower percentage of body fat. The subject is submerged in a tank and must attempt to blow every possible bit of their air out, since air in the lungs would cause the person to float a little bit. Without going into all the details, body density is determined by this underwater weight, and a body fat percentage can then be determined. Although hydrostatic weighing is precise when performed correctly, there are several procedural problems with this technique. It's very time-consuming, and not everyone can perform this assessment, especially children, the elderly, the very obese, and those uncomfortable in water. In addition, hydrostatic weighing requires expensive equipment to determine the residual lung volume, or the amount of air that still remains in the lungs despite a maximal expiration. And although the general error associated with this technique is on the order of 2% body fat, recent advances in technology are dethroning hydrostatic weighing as a laboratory method of choice. Let's take a look at a couple of these new sophisticated techniques. Air displacement plasmography has recently gained widespread use because it's a fast and non-invasive alternative to hydrostatic weighing. The only commercially available unit called the BOD pod applies basic gas laws for the determination of body volume and therefore body density and ultimately body fat. The subject sits quietly in an egg-shaped chamber for a 60-second period while their body volume is measured through air displacement. With a few calculations, percent body fat can be determined. The BOD pod has gone through much scientific rigor and has been validated against other criterion methods. Recent studies indicate that on average, percent body fat as determined by the BOD pod and by hydrostatic weighing differ by less than 1%. So there's little difference between the two methods. The thing I like about the BOD pod is that it's much quicker and easier for all subjects to perform. It's even replaced hydrostatic weighing in many research and clinical settings. On the downside, it's an expensive piece of equipment. Finally, dual energy X-ray absorptiometry, or DEXA, has proven to be very reliable, accurate, and precise. This piece of equipment was originally designed to assess bone health, but changes in software now allow it to assess body fatness as well. The procedure itself only takes about 6 minutes and is painless. Although there is a little bit of radiation exposure, DEXA is very safe. The amount of radiation is similar to a long plane ride. Also, continuous improvements in software are distinguishing DEXA as the possible new gold standard or reference model against which other techniques can be compared. However, DEXA is a very expensive piece of equipment that's usually only found in hospitals and in some research settings. This is not something you're going to find at your local fitness center. Research has demonstrated that there is danger in having too little or too much body fat. Although the optimal amount of fat depends on many factors, men shouldn't fall below 5 to 7% of body fat, and women below around 12%. These levels represent essential body fat that is needed to function at a healthy level. Although having a low body fat percentage can be important for athletic performance or jobs like police work or firefighting, keep in mind that being too lean can create quite a problem. Without enough essential fat, you put yourself at risk for certain diseases and your body won't function at its highest level. The body uses essential fat to carry vitamins, regulate temperature, and act as a shock absorber. On the other hand, the health risks of having too much fat include heart disease, high blood pressure or hypertension, high cholesterol levels, cancer, and diabetes. It's debatable as to what level of body fatness puts someone at risk and can vary based on the person. Different organizations use different cutoff points for what's considered too much body fat. But most experts agree men shouldn't be above about 25% and women above about 35%. I would like to point out that scientific evidence indicates that as long as you're aerobically fit and physically active, you can carry quite a bit of body fat before disease approaches. In other words, cardiovascular or aerobic fitness might be a better predictor of disease status than fatness itself. In addition to health risks, overweight people tend to have fewer job opportunities, make less money than their peers, and face social discrimination. This occurs because some people assume just because a person's overweight or overly fat that they're not trying, that they lack willpower, that they're not a productive worker or even a good person. These may be invalid assumptions, but overweight people run the risk of being judged by these standards. There's no doubt that obesity is multifactorial in nature, meaning that it's caused by many different things. Clearly, there's a hereditary disposition to body size. In fact, some people believe that there's a hereditary set point to obesity and that we're all born with the predisposition to be near a certain weight, and no matter what we do, our body will defend that weight by increasing or decreasing its own metabolism. However, we have to be careful about overgeneralizing that. Some people think, well, that's my set point, I don't have to worry, I can eat whatever I want because I'll maintain what my heredity has designed me to be. Not necessarily true. It is true that we all have different body types, or somatotypes, and that some people tend to be more muscular mesomorphs, others more lean ectomorphs, while others tend to be the more round endomorphs. The somatotype that you inherit obviously plays a role, and therefore it'll be more difficult for some people to be lean than for others. Energy balance is another factor that can lead to a large change in body weight. Most experts agree that if you consume more calories than you expend, you'll gain body weight. For example, if you consumed an extra handful of peanuts, approximately 200 calories, every day for 1 year, your body weight would increase by about 20 pounds. This is calculated from the fact that 3,500 calories are equal to 1 pound of body fat. So if you want to lose a pound, you either have to consume 3,500 fewer calories than you expend, or eat normally and expend an extra 3,500 from physical activity. Finally, as most people get older, they tend to get fatter, mostly due to a decrease in their activity level. It can creep up on a person quite easily, and it's therefore often termed creeping obesity. The environment is another factor contributing to the obesity epidemic. People often make decisions based on their environment. For example, people might not be able to walk to the store because of a lack of sidewalks, or they might overeat due to large portion sizes at restaurants. Some people have even said that we live in a toxic environment because everything is set up to keep us inactive and because food in this country is plentiful. The best way to help you maintain or lose body weight is by gradually expending more calories, approximately 200 to 500 per day through various modes of physical activity. Lifestyle activities like house cleaning or gardening are effective because not only do they cause you to expend calories, but also you're likely to continue doing them over time. Aerobic activities and active sports also expend calories as well as provide numerous health benefits. And be sure to include strength and muscular endurance activities that help build lean body mass. Flexibility exercises and being inactive are of course not among the better ones for losing weight or body fatness. Another segment of this video series covers nutrition in great detail. So for now, I'll just tell you that extremely low-calorie diets are rarely effective, especially in the long term. By losing more than 1 to 2 pounds per week, your basal metabolic rate will eventually decrease and you'll end up losing muscle mass instead of fat. It's more effective to reduce caloric intake on a regular basis, but remember, only eat 200 to 500 fewer calories per day than normal. "40% of all women and 25% of men are thought to be dieting. It's a $30 billion industry, and yet Americans are still getting fatter. This should tell you something. Almost all diets are unsuccessful. The best approach to achieving optimal body fatness is a lifestyle approach. Eat properly and perform exercise on a regular basis for a lifetime. Unfortunately, most Americans don't follow this advice. In fact, many Americans suffer from eating disorders. Barbara Stegeman-Mitchell, a clinical dietitian with the University of Missouri healthcare team, has offered to provide us some more information about eating disorders.
Anorexia nervosa is a common eating disorder that afflicts about 5 to 10% of the population each year, the vast majority of which are young women. It is a complex, multifactorial psychological disorder where one of the hallmarks is unrealistic self-perceptions of one's body. These individuals perceive themselves to be too fat, even when they're emaciated and extremely thin. They often fear fatness over death from starvation. The condition is characterized by undereating and often excessive exercising. It is important to realize that anorexia nervosa is a life-threatening disease. It often leads to menstrual irregularities, digestive problems, extreme sensitivity to cold, irregular heartbeat, nerve injuries, immune deficiencies, anemia, depression, and osteoporosis. This is a very serious health concern, and it is on the increase. Bulimia is another eating disorder that carries health risks. It's characterized by episodes of binge eating, followed by inappropriate compensatory behaviors, such as vomiting, compulsive exercising, abuse of laxatives or diuretics, and/or food restriction. Binge purge behaviors are very harmful to the gastrointestinal system, the gums, and the teeth. They can also lead to life-threatening electrolyte imbalances. Electrolytes are minerals that circulate in the bloodstream and need to be maintained at a certain level for normal body functions to occur. Individuals with bulimia can be overweight, underweight, or within normal weight range for their height and body frame. Eating disorders require long-term, multidimensional treatment, including care from a psychologist or therapist, medical doctor, dietitian, and other healthcare team members. Early intervention usually results in better long-term recovery outcomes, so do not hesitate to seek treatment if you suspect that you or someone you know may be suffering from an eating disorder.
Some experts have proposed a new way of thinking because people often set unrealistic goals. People often think they can lose weight quickly or accomplish something in a short period of time. The new way of thinking is lifestyle thinking. Set realistic short-term and long-term goals. Eat in moderation and choose moderate activities that you can do consistently and routinely. Be aware that extreme activities tend to have limitations, which might make them difficult to stick with over the long term. It's also a good idea to find people who will support you in the activities that you choose. I tell you, it's been some great exercise walking around campus today, and even playing a little frisbee along the way. For Fitness and Wellness for a Lifetime, I'm Steve Ball.